The problem I see is people will remain separated and get their US citizen spouse to agree to just help them remove the conditions on their residency in the future, and then they'll go their separate ways. If you're a conditional resident and you're separated from your spouse, then this video is for you. I've made several other videos on this exact topic in recent weeks, and every time I post a video on this topic, a few new people consult with me and say like, wow, I didn't know about your YouTube channel until I saw that one video which directly described my situation. So that's probably more a function of me being really bad at YouTube than anything else. So anyway, this video is another video about removing your conditions by filing Form I-751 if you're separated from your spouse. So if you're a conditional resident through marriage, which means you married a US citizen and before you've been married for 2 years, you were granted permanent residence. So your marriage was fairly new when you became a permanent resident. In that situation, your green card is conditional. It will expire in 2 years. And before it expires, you have to file Form I-751, which is a petition to remove the conditions on your residency. And what I see happen all the time is people will get into a problem or get into a marital dispute, or the marriage just isn't working out, and maybe it wasn't working out before you even got your green card, but you sucked it up and you stayed in the marriage, you're trying to work on it, whatever the case may be. And then you get your conditional green card, and then like within a few months, the marriage just fully breaks down. And you guys might even be still living together and like hate each other, or just separated and like doing your own things. And the problem I see is people will remain separated and get their US citizen spouse to agree to just help them remove the conditions on their residency in the future, and then they'll go their separate ways. That's a huge mistake for several reasons. And the main one is that you're not gonna have evidence of a good faith marriage for the period of time that you guys are separated, which could be literally years before you're scheduled for an I-751 interview. And you might be saying, yeah, but I've heard that the I-751 doesn't always have an interview. True, it doesn't always have an interview if you continue living together and have a ton of evidence of your good faith marriage. If your evidence is weak, or, if your interview is scheduled during the Trump administration, there is a heightened probability that there will be an interview and that the USCIS officer is going to be looking for more evidence that you're just not going to have if you guys are not living together. Let me just show you how this could play out. So let's say you get your conditional green card September 2025. So you just got your conditional 2-year green card. And then like in 3 months, you and your spouse get into a major fight and you decide to live separately for a while. A while turns into a few months longer, and before you know it, a year has passed since you got your conditional green card and you guys haven't been living together. So 1 year from now, you're gonna need to remove the conditions on your residency. 2 years after you get your conditional green card, you're gonna have to remove the conditions on your residency. So a year from now, you're gonna say to your spouse like, hey, I know we still talk sometimes. I need to fix the conditions on my residency. Will you please jointly sign this I-751 with me? We are, after all, still married. This was a real marriage. And your US citizen spouse says, fine, I'll help you out this one last time. They've signed the I-751 with you. You file it with USCIS. And you're expecting it to get approved quickly. But a year and a half later passes. Now you guys haven't been living together for like more than 3 years. And then USCIS sends you a request for evidence. And by the way, these timelines are pretty accurate. It could easily be a year and a half after you file the I-751 before you get a request for evidence. And the request for evidence says like you didn't submit enough evidence. And the reason you didn't submit enough evidence is because you guys hadn't been living together for that 2-year conditional residency period. And now you're scrambling because now you haven't been living together for more than 3 years and you don't have more evidence. So you scramble, you get some stuff together, and then you submit it, and USCIS is still unsatisfied. So a year or 2 later, they schedule an interview for you and your US citizen spouse. By now, your US citizen spouse wants nothing to do with you. They might be in a new relationship. The only reason they're not divorcing you is because you've asked them not to until you get your permanent 10-year unconditional green card. But they're waiting to divorce you so that they could like move on with their lives or marry their new significant other or whatever the case may be. So now you have to attend an interview with this person who you haven't been living with for several years. How do you think that's gonna go when the immigration officer asks you guys to describe your day-to-day lives together? Like, it's just not worth it. There's a better option than remaining separated. And my general advice is once you're separated, if you know for sure that the marriage isn't going to work out, then I would almost always advise getting legally divorced, because you can still file the I-751 if you're legally divorced. I can't tell you how many people have dug themselves into a hole and now we're trying to dig out of that hole, but it's really hard. And they just say, I wish someone had told me like a few years ago that we could have just gotten divorced, because I've just been trying to like act like we're still married all this time. And aside from possible fraud allegations from USCIS, like you could easily end up in removal proceedings, which I've seen several people recently who've received NTAs, notices to appear in immigration court, based on this exact situation. So it's totally avoidable because you can still file the I-751 if you get a final divorce certificate. The I-751 allows you to remove the conditions with your US citizen spouse jointly if you guys are still living together in a good faith marriage, or separately where you can just do it without your US citizen spouse if you have a final divorce certificate. To do it based on divorce, you just need evidence that the marriage was entered into in good faith and a final divorce certificate. If you have neither, which means you're separated but still legally married but not divorced, that's the worst situation to be in. And I've seen I-751s get denied because the person was just in this limbo status, not really married and not legally divorced, just married but separated. That's the worst situation you can be in if you need to file an I-751. Anyway, guys, this video is for people who need to file an I-751 and who are panicking if their marriage isn't working out. Just know there are options available. If you want to speak to me about how to best prepare your I-751 so that you can keep your permanent residence and then become a citizen in the future, be sure to schedule a consultation directly with me, Pouyan Darian. I'm an immigration attorney with an office in New York. I handle these cases nationwide. I do a lot of I-751s based on separation or divorce. And spoiler alert, I'm probably gonna tell you to get divorced if you're separated and it's not gonna work out and there's no chance that your marriage is gonna get back together. But we will create a strategy, a timeline, a plan, a list of evidence to submit, and I'm happy to handle the case for you from start to finish if that's what you're looking for. If you're new to my channel and you just wanna stay up to date on family-based immigration, naturalization, and just, you know, what's happening on the ground from an immigration lawyer's perspective as immigration policies change, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I put out several videos each week, and I'll see you guys next time for another video.